It's Graham Healy, and it's Friday the 9th of May, and this is the Healy report. I thought today I'd do a quick video on Dr. Richard Fleming's book, Is COVID-19 a Bioweapon? Now, this book was brought out in 2021. I'll post an image of it on the video, and I'll give you a link to my website where you actually can hear Dr. Fleming talking about this in 2021 under oath in the Senate. The thing is, my website, riseupaustraliabrisbane.com, which is an advocacy for political things and basically the truth, I suppose, especially over the COVID period. Now, I'll just read a little bit for you. I don't hear a lot of people sort of quoting this book, but I got it in 2021, late 2021, as soon as it came out. I remember listening to Dr. Fleming, who's got a PhD, he's a medical doctor, also he's a lawyer. So he's a pretty smart dude, and he nailed it, and he actually has got everything in the book, including the patents, that were taken out by Fauci and all the rest of them. There's no question that COVID-19, due to its spreadability and the manipulation of the, the biochain, I suppose you would call it, they actually interfered with the coronavirus, a standard one, and made it into a bioweapon which is far more spreadable than a normal flu virus. That's basically what it was, okay, a bad flu virus. Now, I'll just read the front part of the book, and of course you can go on to my website and actually listen to the interview, and I'll do the links when I put this on YouTube. Now that you can put stuff on YouTube, remember when you were banned for putting anything on YouTube because the whole system was brainwashing and gaslighting you, and still some people to this day are completely brainwashed. They've been lobotomized by the system. It's sad to see it, but I've seen it several times. People walking around in masks still, they think they still going to get their boosters and all this, which is insane. But anyway, this is the front of the book, and I mean, this is in reverse because I'm doing it on the mobile phone, but you'll see the images of that on the video. So by 1999, the US federal agencies began funding gain of function research. They did it before then, but anyway, this is the updated version, and by the very nature is designed to increase the ability of pathogens to infect and harm people. This is a thing going on in the background, I believe, in my last report, since about 1945 when they started it, according to Robert Kennedy Jr., which of course you've got to get his book too. Those references are all on my website. I mean, I did this huge website following the truth with all the credible scientists, and none of it was on mainstream media, none of it. Here we are. By the very nature designed to increase the ability of pathogens to infect and harm people. In 2019, one of these pathogens was intentionally released upon the world in the Wuhan wet market. The key to providing the understanding to this bioweapon is the spike protein. This is the introduction to the book. The very same spike protein now is being made in millions of people after the COVID vaccines, which are not vaccines, they're experimental mRNA technology, are injected into them. These vaccines have nothing more than a genetic code these vaccines are nothing more than the genetic code of this bioweapon. In other words, he was, back then, even though he did all this interview under oath in front of the Senate, very, very respected doctor, this guy, and a lawyer, people were mortified. They completely lived in denial. They couldn't believe what he was saying, but he was 100% correct. The book traces the publication of the money trail of the COVID-19, showing who is ultimately criminally responsible for the design and development of this weapon. It wasn't until Donald Trump come into power with Robert Kennedy Jr. that they've actually brought this to the surface and exposed it for what it is. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail in the book. You can buy the book and have a look at it yourself, but I'll just read you the contents of it. And he explains very clearly what is gain of function research. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2, Peter Dazzle of EcoHealth, Ralph S. Baric, and Xing Jianglu, which is what they call the Bat Lady in Wuhan. The paper trail of the US funding for gain of function research. You know, Senator Paul Rand continually through Senate estimates, equivalent of Senate estimates in the US, he continually hammered Dr. Fauci. Now, I've got to say Fauci because the auto text brings it, I think it does, it spells it differently. So Fauci, F-A-U-C-H-I. The paper trail of the US funding for gain of function research. This was going on, as Robert Kennedy Jr.'s book says, from about 1945. The SARS-CoV-2 gain of function smoking gun is the spike protein. Intentionally released bioweapon. So that's chapter 5. So all that's there, and Dr. Fleming does a complete, very well referenced history of the evil that has gone on with the COVID-19 bioweapon. Now, you know, when we were talking about this in 2021, we were labelled as conspiracy theorists and all the rest of it. Now it turns out we're absolutely correct, 100%, what we were saying, what the other scientists were saying. And the interesting fact was that during all this, the key to helping people out with coronavirus was early treatment, and they squashed that. Fauci squashed that because his interests were with the pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer, Moderna and what have you, and they were controlling the so-called vaccine, which it wasn't a vaccine. It was actually an experimental gene modifying drug that made your body manufacture the spike proteins, which is the pathogen that's on the surface of the particular bioweapon. Now, I think I've got one here. Not a real one, but that's what it looks like. So that is what the spike proteins, all these things, this is just imagine this is a part of the coronavirus floating in. These spike proteins, they genetically modified the injections, the experimental drug, so your body then started producing these pathogens, which is poison to the body. So I do have a med science degree, and my other associate, Dr. William Bay, who stood up early in the piece, as he says, that he's a medical doctor, whereas I've got a chiropractic degree, which is a lot to do with anatomy and physiology, and I'm also, if I do the masters, I'm qualified to do x-rays and everything like that, so we did all that. But the thing is that you don't do anything about vaccinology, and also a regular medical doctor doesn't do anything about vaccinology either. They don't study it, they just accept it. So the only people that have actually got what I call qualifications regarding vaccinology are specialists in the area, such as Professor Nicola Kravinsky. So when you go on my website, riseupaustraliabrisbane.com, and you search through the pages, such as, I'll just have a look at that here, where we've got Rise Up Australia, and you go to Adverse Reactions page, and you'll see a lot of history regarding the so-called unsafe, ineffective tests that were done by real medical people over the COVID period. Now, where is this all going to end up? I keep seeing Dictator Dan in Melbourne in jail. There's moves underfoot to charge him criminally because none of these politicians, none of them had any scientific evidence. They were just completely in a evil pact with the pharmaceutical company, mainly Pfizer, or Moderna I suppose as well, but certainly Pfizer had already a track record of lying to the public in order to push their drugs. And as a result, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, I believe 450 million people died in the US due to the injection. Now, Dr. Peter McCulloch, who also stood up, and he's got his book, which is, I'll just read it out, The Courage to Face COVID-19, Preventing Hospitalisation and Death While Battling the Biopharmaceutical Complex, by John Leake and Dr. Peter McCulloch. That one there, if you can see it in reverse. And then, of course, we've got our other main, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy's now the director in charge of health in the US, which is great because he really knows what he's talking about. When you read his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, I'll go into that in another video. I'll do an overview for it, but please buy the book and have a look at the evil that Fauci was involved with, experimenting on foster children, experimenting on, African mothers that aborted their children. He is worse. I named Dr. Fauci as Dr. Death. He's worse, and I keep saying this in these videos, he is worse than anything that Nazi Germany did with Mengels, Dr. Mengels, Dr. Death as they called it, in the death camps. Dr. Fauci has left that kill rate in insignificance compared to what he's been involved in. So why do you think he got the old sleepy Joe Biden to pardon everything that he's done? Because he knows he's headed for Guantanamo Bay or Alcatraz when they, I'd like to see him in Alcatraz actually, when they refurbish that, but he can stay in Guantanamo Bay. I believe he needs a gas chamber. That's my personal view, because he's actually participated in mass murder of people, mass disinformation, and all about him making money in partnership with the pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer in particular, that their so-called tests, they never did any tests worth worrying about, and the thing is, at the end of the day, the so-called clinical tests they do were all bodged anyhow. It's a bit like, I mean, when I went through my degree, they're all talking about evidence-based medicine. I mean, that's out the door. You can forget about evidence-based medicine. It's big pharma-based propaganda. That's about it. They will skew the figures. They will skew the testing to favour whatever drug they're pushing at the particular point in time. So out of all this, what's happened is the exposure to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, which would have killed COVID dead on the spot had you got to it early in the piece, in the early stages. And with all respiratory viruses, their danger point is when they are left getting into secondary infections such as pneumonia and all the rest of it. Just to put it in perspective, I'll just leave this, I won't make it a long video, I'll leave it right here. In 2017, the deaths in Australia from the common flu and pneumonia was about 4,700, over 4,000 anyhow, 4,200, 4,300, somewhere around there. Now, just think about that, 4,000, right? They shut down the country, they do a lock you up in your room, shut down all the business, run around with masks on everywhere, and yet the total deaths on, I think it was 2020-21 in Australia from COVID is about 1,000, might be 1,900, some figures say 1,000. So it was a quarter of what it was in 2017, the common flu, and you didn't even know anything about it because they never even said anything about it. It was just a statistic on the Bureau of Statistics, Australian Bureau of Statistics. Oh, there you go. 417 or 430, 4,300 people died of a bad flu that year. No one even blinked an eyelid. However, you get 900 people dying of what relates to the strength of a normal flu, and yet the whole country gets shut down. So it was all a, I was a bit reserved in saying was it a bioweapon to start with? Was it a common, just a virus that got off the chain, so to speak? And then when all the lies started coming out and all the control and all the you were blackmailed into taking their bioweapon injection that made you a walking spike protein lab. And that's what caused all the myocarditis, that's what caused all the strokes, that's what caused all the miscarriages, that's what's caused liver damage and all the rest of it. Is you personally, who have, people have taken I don't know how many doses of the spike protein, you've loaded yourself up with a very, very serious pathogen that will overcome the whole body. And unfortunately, depending on the batch numbers and all this sort of stuff, a lot of people were either killed, murdered out of it, or seriously damaged. They can never work again. Dr. Peter McCulloch, not Dr. Peter McCulloch, but Dr. Melissa McCain, who lives in Mackay, one of her patients, she's running a class action against the government and the so-called medical experts at the time, the chief medical officer for Queensland, etc. One of her patients had to get a heart transplant because of the so-called experimental drug. So there's a lot of serious damage being done to people, including young people, and the absolute brainwashed propaganda that came out about it, including the PCR testing as the so-called golden standard, just complete lies. So that has to be brought into full focus very, very shortly. People have to go to jail out of it, actually, and I'm looking forward to seeing the justice come out of the system. And thank God for Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr. in the US, because they will lead the charge and the rest of the world will follow. But the data's in. Dr. McCulloch with his McCulloch Foundation, he's pumping out information all the time now. The data is irrefutably in and the damage has been done. It'll make thalidomide look like a walk in the park. Okay, Graham Healy over and out. I hope you enjoy that video. We'll speak to you soon. The Healy Report over and out. www.riseupaustraliabrisbane.com. This is Friday, the 9th of May 2025. Have a great day.